guys. Number 8. What I'm asked to do is find the exact value of theta in degrees and radians without a calculator. All right, today we're going to be talking in the first quadrant. Next class we'll add the other 3 quadrants. But what we have to be able to do is the sine of theta equals a half. We need to go through a process to be able to tell me what theta equals. For these to be able to work, they have to be a good angle, one off of our unit circle. So the first thing I'm going to do over here on the side, I'm going to write pi over 6, pi over 3, and pi over 2. This is what we have to be able to do in our heads. These are, right for me, are 3 good angles. I know pi over 6 is square root of 3 over 2 a half. I know pi over 3 is 1/2 square root of 3 over 2. Pi over 2 is square root of 2 over 2, square root of 2 over 2. That's just what we have to be able to think in our heads. All right? When I talk about the sine of theta being equal to a half, I need to think that sine is my y value, so I'm going to go over here and find an angle that has a y value of a half, and there it is. That means that theta has to be pi over 6. So we know sine is my y value. The ordered pair in the first quadrant that has a y value of a half is pi over 6. So we know that the sine of pi over 6 equals a half, and that's what we're trying to find. All right, number 9 says the secant of 2. Secant of theta is 2. All right, I don't work in terms of secant. So I'm going to change the secant of theta into the cosine of theta to be a half. Don't work in terms of secants, work in cosine. So now I know the cosine's a half. I know the cosine is my x value. So I'm going to think, okay, which angle has an x value of a half? Oh, pi over 3. So I'm going to say that theta equals pi over 3 because the cosine of pi over 3 is a half, which means the secant of pi over 3 is also going to be 2. That's our thought process. All right, number 11, cosecant of theta is 2 square roots of 3 over 3. All right, for these to be able to work, these are the only numbers I'm allowed to use. So I'm going to take the reciprocal of cosecant and say the sine of theta is 3 over 2 square roots of 3. And I'm going to clean that up by multiplying the top and the bottom by square root of 3. But I'm not going to bother with that. It has to be something over here. And it has to be square root of 3 over 2, because that's the only thing that has square root of 3 in it. Sine is my y value. My y value is square root of 3 over 2 is pi over 6. Without a calculator, it's got to be square root of 2 over 2, 1/2 square root of 3 over 2, or some combinations of those for tangents and cosecants and secants. All right, last part, we're going to use a calculator. Or Desmos. Whatever works for you. All right, so sine of theta is 0.8191. Let me back up a step. I apologize. Go back to here. We got theta to be pi over 6, but we need to remember 30 degrees, 60 degrees, and 45 degrees. So I would need to, on these directions, go back and add pi over 6 is my answer, 30 degrees. Pi over 6, 30 degrees, 60 degrees. All right, let's go back. All right. Sine of theta is 0.8191. We're going to do this in degrees. All right? If we can do it in degrees, all we're going to do is change the modes if I want it in radians. So it all depends on what we're talking about. We'll just do both anyway. We'll just switch back and forth. All right, so the sine of theta is 0.8191. So what I'm looking for is an angle that when I take the sine of it, I'm going to get the answer of 0.8191. All right, to do this, on your calculator. And that's what we're going to do. I'm going to do it in the calculator first. We're going to type second sine. Second sine gives us our inverse sign. Inverse sign, sine to the negative 1, is how we find angles. So we're going to rewrite this. This becomes the inverse sign. So I'm going to take the inverse sign of 0.8191, and that's going to give me my angle theta. And I'm going to start in degree mode just to double check that. Yep, I'm in degree. So I'm going to type in 0.8191 and get approximately to 3 decimal places, 53.998 degrees. So if you want to find an angle, we're going to hit second sign, type in the decimal, and that's going to give us our angle. So when I change to radian mode, I get 0.942 radians. All right, in Desmos. Let me pull it up so I can talk you through it as I do it. All right, in Desmos, what we're going to do is we're going to go to that graphing calculator. We're going to click the keyboard, function, sine negative 1. So on Desmos, we go to the keyboard function, sine to the negative 1, type in our 0.8191, hit enter. And we get, let me check what mode I'm in. Oh, yep. Just a second, I messed up on mine. Let's change this up a little. Make this a 4. I typed the wrong number in my calculator. So make this, don't want to do that much. Make this a 4. And if I put it in radian mode, 0.95, 9 points, move back up. .960. All right, that helps type the right thing in. All right, and I made this 0.960 because that tells me I rounded to 3 places. All right, the most important thing is putting it in right. All right, so in your calculator, it's second sign. In Desmos, it's your keyboard function and click sine to the negative 1. All right, let's see if I can get this one right. Tangent of theta is 1.1920. So I want to do the inverse tangent of 1.1920, and that's going to equal my theta. So I do the inverse tangent, either in Desmos or in the calculator. In radians, I'm going to get 0.873 radians. In degree, 50.006 degrees. All right, so when you want to find an angle, you need to do inverse. Inverse sine, inverse tangent, inverse cosine, whatever it is, to be able to get there. All right, that's the rest of the lesson. If you have any questions, send me a message. If not, have a great couple days.